Everybody Hates Rand is a Wheel of Time podcast that will contain spoilers for all 14 books. So if you're anti-spoiler, pause this, read all 14 books, and come back. We'll be here, waiting.
Our title is a joke and is meant to be taken as such. In the context of this podcast, everybody refers to us and our cat. You are free to feel however you want about Rand, who is a fictional character. Don't DM us.
The world is a mess, Dark One stretching out his hand. The dragon's reborn, the fire's been fanned, but everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand.
Ready to talk about cults or whatever?
Did you prepare notes?
I did not prepare notes. I just have multiple years of knowledge stored in my brain from listening to various true crime podcasts on cults. That's all I've got.
I should not. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm really low energy today. My
That's
uterus
okay.
hurts quite a bit.
Do you want to get your stuffed sheep that you knew? Sally got a package
No, it's
yesterday,
okay.
and I was like, I don't know what this is. It was kind of crinkly and shaped like a throw pillow, and Tybalt kept trying to eat it, so I had to hide it in my closet. And then she got back and was like, I know what this is, and pulled out two stuffed, identical, what I thought were pigs, because they were pink, but they're actually stuffed like little Shiba Inu doggies.
Mm-hmm.
And you put they come with one of those little heat things.
Yeah, like little seed bags that you
Little seed
seed up.
bags that you put in the microwave, and then you can put it on your body or whatever hurts, and it makes you feel better.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a pretty... And then she came in. I was in the kitchen today making a quesadilla or something.
This is so rude.
And she came in holding the Shiba Inu, but like it was a Muppet with her.
It was
hands
warm
inside.
inside. Emily's so mean to me.
It was so funny. Risking the crunching in the background. This is Everybody Hates Rand, your friendly neighborhood Wheel of Time podcast. I'm Emily Chushaw.
And I am Sally Gidger.
And today we are here to talk about, luckily the last two chapters of the Nynaeve and Elaine saga for a little while. We get to go to the exciting events happening over at Kyrian next week, including telescopes and Matt Cathon's first forays into military leadership, I guess.
I do find telescopes very exciting.
But anyway, we pick up where we left off with Uno and Nynaeve about to enter Samara, which is a city that we now know is sort of being controlled by the Prophet, aka Masema, who we last saw at the beginning of Book 3, already developing his troubling tendencies towards cult leadership. But mostly when we knew him in Book 2, he was just kind of an emo guy who had a lot of really unfortunate racism toward the Ale because he'd fought in the Ale War, and he was just an all-around unpleasant dude, hanging out with the Shienarans and disliking Rand because Rand looks ale, and oh, how the turntables. But Nynaeve, there's continuing rhetoric about Nynaeve's bosom being exposed. That's like a whole thing throughout these chapters that I sort of wish we could just forget.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, I guess if you're not used to wearing low-cut stuff, you would also be really hyper-aware of it, or at least I have been in the past if I wear something that exposes more of my body than I'm used to. But it's also just like the whole setup is silly.
Yeah, well, it's supposed to be like funny when it is obviously a situation that makes Nynaeve extremely uncomfortable, and like it isn't actually charming or amusing to watch women be put in sexual or sexual adjacent situations that they are uncomfortable in. So
yeah, and it's like meant to expose or to make light of Nynaeve's hypocrisy, because then she when Masema comments on it, she, of course, rightfully is like, you don't have any right to comment on the way I dress or to govern the way I dress. It's not up to you. That's totally my choice. Which is true, but because it's Nynaeve saying it and because she's been uncomfortable this entire time, we're sort of like, it's sort of meant to be taken with a grain of salt in some way. So it's just Robert Jordan being like, look how stupid women are yet again. And it's like, great, thanks, RJ. So yeah, that's great. But Uno is there, and after, as they get further into the city soon, I'm going to pronounce it Reagan, I guess?
I was thinking like Ragon.
Ragon? That's nicer sounding.
I don't know.
No, I like that better because when I say Reagan, I like know too many people named Reagan. Ragon, who's got a fun triangle scar on his face, and I guess is younger and hotter than Uno, or at least that's that's what I've been led to believe. Yeah. That's my fantasy, anyway.
I mean, it's not hard for Nynaeve to consider anyone hotter than Uno. She's like
She's very rude to Uno.
Yeah, and she's also like really upsetting about his eye patch and the fact that sometimes he like fiddles with it.
Yeah, and she's like, I'm gonna puke constantly, and it's like, dude's missing an eye. I've come close to missing an eye.
Like it's not like it's just Robert Jordan's disability politics suck ass.
Yeah. We don't, Uno's one-eyedness is also, like, the butt of a joke frequently because it contributes to this mythologizing of him as this scary figure, you know, because he's got an eye patch that has, like, a red eye drawn on it, and he's this big, buff, armed guy. But it's also just, like, interesting because Uno's one of the few men we've seen who continues to be, who continues to pursue a career in the military and in fighting while also navigating a disability. And you'd think that would be especially relevant considering that Matt will eventually lose an eye. But, of course, Matt's disability is immediately negated by his superpowers as a Taviran. So it's just like, who's more impressive? Matt's magic luck powers or the fact that Uno has stayed alive this entire goddamn time? Like, into his late 40s, it would appear.
Yeah. But he also, like, shouldn't have to be impressive. You know, like, Robert Jordan sets him up as pretty much one of the only people, like you said, that we see with any type of disability. And the idea...
Like, do you want me to lock him away?
Well, just what are you doing? What's happening? It's a piece of dust. It's not a bug.
He's really obsessed with bugs right now. Because a lot have gotten into our apartment. And pest control isn't coming for a week.
You are the fucking devil. You are a demon from hell. But Uno, like, shouldn't have to be impressive. Like, in a way, like, the disabilities that we do see in Wheel of Time, which I think are, like, Uno, Rand, Matt.
I can't think of any others.
These three boys.
Two of whom, as we said, don't really have disabilities.
Yeah, because everything about them is negated by the fact that they are, like, special and can control fate. And, like, when Rand eventually loses a hand, he doesn't necessarily, quote-unquote, need two hands in order to function because he can channel. And, like...
Did you know I was high-key convinced for a while that Perrin would lose a leg just because I was like...
Eye-hand leg.
Yeah, I was like, what's happening here? It's all happening in the last, like, 2 books.
Yeah. At least in terms of physical disability, Rand's narrative with his, mental illnesses is a little bit of a different story. Tybalt is being put in prison. But then, so we have Uno kind of standing as our lone figure... lone, normal, quote-unquote, proletarian figure with a disability.
Workers' rights,
yeah.
says Uno.
Unionize.
Commie flag.
Yeah, unionize the Shienaran soldiers.
I mean, they deserve it. Fuck.
Yeah. And he's basically supposed to be like, look at how badass this dude is with everything that he can do with, like, just one eye. So he sort of veers into, like, the territory of inspiration porn.
Yeah, of course you're right.
Anyway.
But yeah, Nynaeve is very gross about all of it.
Sorry that took me so long. just really
Well, it's
punctuates
just like,
the trains of thought.
hey, I'm gonna freak out over this mote of dust. Or, hey, I'm going to stand on the washer now. And just, like, try to, like, pull down the bleach so I can eat it.
He
And it's
is.
like, you're so stupid.
Tybalt is on a mission to harm himself. Not because he's, you know, in any sort of mental distress, just because he wants to torture us.
He's just like, ugh, they're not paying attention to me at this moment. They're looking at a computer. Computers, like, trigger Tybalt, I swear to God.
Yeah.
He gets way more upset when we're both working on our computers.
Yeah, it's like he knows computers are the enemy for our attention, because we've been, like, both of us work computer-based jobs. Like, we're on our computers all day.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody is now that they're working from home, but we also have a lot of, like, computer-based extracurricular activities, like the podcast and the fact that both of us write. And Tybalt is just like, this is the enemy.
I'm like, Tybalt, you don't even want my attention
Yeah.
half the time. You get so angry when I pay attention to you.
He just needs to know that there's no other option. We either pay attention to him or we suffer.
Or we're in a coma.
Yeah.
Stupid.
I hate him so much. Tybalt and I need a break.
Tybalt is like the manifestation of how people in the early history of the Earth were like, everything revolves around us.
Yeah.
Tybalt is like, it's a Tybalt-centric universe,
Yeah.
baby. These are just my servants.
Fucking hate that little monster.
Ugh. It really makes you think about how the Egyptians were like, cats equal gods. And I'm
Yeah.
like, what a horrifying view of deities, but also, you know,
Look at the way he acts.
he's just the worst. Okay.
He's got so much self-righteousness.
So, Uno and Ragan they sort of chat with Nynaeve, I guess, and then take her through increasingly confusing cities, which it's like the closeness of it all sort of contributes to this claustrophobic feeling that prevails throughout this chapter, as does the physical discomfort that Nynaeve feels in a dress, however stupid that plot point may be. It's also just, there's just like, everything is horrible. But Nynaeve, they get to this house, which Nynaeve describes as like a fairly nice house. It's got multiple stories. It's got a garden.
It's a garden full of garbage.
It essentially is, though. Nynaeve walks in and immediately, like, puts on her property brother's voice and is like, this place is disgusting.
Yeah.
She's like, could really use some interior decorating tips. She's like, I've developed something of an eye for interior decorating since I've been around fucking rich people in the last year. And this place is garbage. But, like, there aren't very many possessions. It's sort of like this shell of a house. And she only sees two servants, both of whom are described as elderly and sort of, like, impoverished looking. They're both kind of wearing flimsy clothing. And, you know, this woman's just stewing a soup or something that Nynaeve is like, it smells like cabbage. My cabbages.
My cabbages.
But they go up, I guess, to Masema's office or whatever, and he's already in conference with this woman who will later join Perrin's coterie, so...
What?
Yeah, she swears fealty to Perrin.
Ew.
Alliandre.
Alejandro.
Alejandro.
Alejandro. Like the Lady Gaga song. That music video is very good. I would recommend watching it or rewatching it.
We should post it alongside this episode.
Okay.
Allie, whatever her name is. Allie. Cutie. She's like a cheerleader. That's what the name Allie makes me think of, I guess.
My name is quite close to that name.
Yeah, but it's different.
Okay.
Alliandre, whatever her fucking name is. Nynaeve overhears this conversation between Alliandre, who she assumes is just sort of like a noble lady, and Masema, where Masema's like, Alliandre is like bringing up these very relevant and prevalent problems that Gyaldin and this city in particular is facing. She's like, there's poverty everywhere. There's no justice system. Your followers just feel like they can take whatever they want.
Yeah.
And Masima's like, yeah, you're right. Let's do this. We'll have, if a dude commits a robbery, then he loses a hand. And if he does murder or sexual assault or any type of thing like that, we'll just kill him. And if women do anything, we'll flog them. And, you just need to find 12 people to back you up. And then they're judged guilty. And the sentence is carried out. And Alliandre's like,
Isn't quite what I was looking for.
Sounds suspiciously like the U.S. Court system, which means
people.
broken.
Yeah.
But, and also just like, in this case, all you need is 12 friends to back you up when you accuse anyone of anything.
Yeah. Or just, like, that makes it so easy to frame people.
Yeah. You can get rid of anyone you want.
Yeah, it's like, this is a shitty court system, my dude.
But he does not care. And she's like, there's a problem with poverty. And he's like, well, we're giving money to poor people. And she's like, that doesn't really solve the systemic issues that we're facing.
Yeah.
He's like, there's tons of money, so there should be plenty of food. And she's like, it's more of a problem of people not wanting to deliver food to this hell city where your crazy cult is in charge. No one wants to get sucked into your vortex of horror. And he's like, sounds like a new problem, lady.
Seriously. She's
like, great. He's like, well, why don't you start with giving me your jewelry? And she's like, fine. Strips off all her jewelry. And later, we learn when Nynaeve is disparaging this woman to Uno and Orgon that she's the queen of Gialdan, that she came into power after 3 of her predecessors fell very quickly in the span of, 2 months.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's been, since we last saw Masema. That was at the end of winter, and it is now late summer. So it's been, 6-7 months tops. And in that time, apparently, we've had 4 rulers of Gialdan, and Masema himself coming to power. Alliandre seems to have been, seems to have contributed to the last woman being ousted from power and just sort of marrying off some noblemen. But Uno and Orgon are like, that was smart of her, essentially, because every one of her predecessors tried to fight against Masema and ultimately failed. Alliandre is just sort of trying to go with the flow in the hopes that she can salvage her people. Yeah. That she can save lives. And as we meet Alliandre later in the series, because she joins up with Perrin throughout the whole Fail kidnapping escapade, we get to know her a little bit. She is a kind, smart, lovely woman. Yeah. She's just sort of in the background as a more competent ruler than Elaine and literally anyone else we see.
Robert Jordan's like, no need for her.
No need for her. She'll just swear fealty to Perrin. She's a little bit young and naive, therefore. We've talked before about how Elaine was handed commander-in-chief powers over the fucking armies of the light at the last battle when Alliandre was right there. Homegirl had to deal with Masema for 7 months.
That is better than dealing with the Dark One. She's got the resume.
She has the resume. She's got the CV all spelled out. Yeah. Have you met Masema? He's the worst.
Even the Dark One's like, girl, yeah.
The Dark One's like, yeah, I mean, I didn't even, orchestrate that, but boy howdy, he really helped me a lot. But Alliandre leaves, and Nynaeve is free to enter with Uno and Orgon, who greet Masema, and he's like, basically, have you finally decided to join my crazy religion? And they're like, no, we're cool out here, bro.
Yeah, we're fine.
And he's like, ugh, who's this whore?
Basically.
And they're like, well, this is, Nynaeve. She supervised Rand as a child, essentially. Yeah. The dragon. The Lord Dragon. She was there when he was reared, or whatever. And he's like, and immediately slips into all of the biblical, texts usually surrounding Mary, Mother of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
I think he calls her blessed among women, which is the term that Angel Gabriel used on Mary in the Bible when he was like, hey, do you want to get cursed with the spawn of the Lord or whatever?
Yeah.
And she was like, sure. And he was like, great, you're top tier womanhood or whatever.
Which is just great.
Yeah, great rhetoric for women. Thank you,
Get
Bible.
pregnant or die.
But the conversation, Nynaeve snaps at Masema. She's like, fuck you. And the conversation slowly builds back up from there with him saying, well, that's great. You can tell us all about the miracles that Rand produced when he was a child. And Nynaeve's like, literally the only wisdom I ever heard from that kid was after he got spanked for doing some shit. He was like, I'm not gonna do it again.
Yeah.
She's like, after that, it was all bullshit. Just like every other child
Yeah.
in the world. She's like, well, that's not gonna go great.
Yeah.
She's like, well, actually, I've been summoned by the Lord Dragon to return to Tyr, which is where he's at, she says, lying through her teeth.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to I need to get there speedily, so it would really help me out if you would look out for a riverboat. And he's like, all right.
I know, he's the fucking worst. I hate him.
Yeah, Masema is, not great. I mean, it's just, how do you say it? Nynaeve comments, and everyone who meets Masema comments frequently on the glint of madness or whatever in his eye, the notion that he essentially isn't right in the head, which isn't inaccurate when it comes to the history of cults. A lot of cult leaders are really charismatic individuals who might be struggling with mental illnesses themselves. Certainly they have to have some levels of narcissism to get involved with that sort of thing. But also a lot of quote-unquote cult leaders are totally with it people who are manipulating people to their own ends. The weird thing we see with Masema as a cult is that usually when we see cult, it's pretty easy to trace everything that the cult does to some sort of power, wealth, privilege, all circling back to this one guy or woman in some cases. With Masema, it's a little bit tougher to do that because he's been positioned as this sort of Gandhi-esque figure who is abstaining from all forms of luxury. He only eats his weird cabbage soup. He has totally shaved his head, so he's kind of got this Gandhi-esque figure going on, and it's just a little bit weird to reconcile those two things because almost inevitably cult leaders are in it for themselves.
Yeah.
So I guess it's a little bit weird that Robert Jordan didn't do that, but then again, he clearly didn't know everything.
Yeah, well, there's also this weird intersection of cult behavior, and then Masema's just incredible fundamentalism. So you see what are the words that I'm looking for? Because the example I want to reach for in modern day understanding is some of the Islamic states in the Middle East, where you see a religion sweeping its way into the politics of people because it's got a fundamentalist leader base. But it is just interesting to have it come down to this also usually if there's a fundamentalism, it's a larger group of people. The White Cloaks perhaps are a better example of what quote unquote fundamentalism might look like in this world.
Right.
So you have this fringe group cult thing, but there's probably people who are just in it to be violent and weird or whatever.
Yeah, certainly. And
then you've got Masema, who's just all hints indicate that he is just really believing everything that he is telling people. It's just a very odd positioning.
Yeah, we see all of Masema's followers who actually believe his whole shtick or claim to believe his whole shtick are a lot like his servants in the house. They're people who are in bad situations, and that's really typical of cults. There are some cults that have started as like narcotics recovery groups and other things like that. So you have these people in really bad positions, and we know that they've been put in these really bad positions by upheaval in the world. Is Gialdan the same place where Logain sort of had his uprising?
I think that's right.
I want to say it is, or like maybe it was Marindy. But this realm of the world...
I could get a map, I guess.
I don't want to know. This realm of the world hasn't been, like, in a great position. Yeah. They're right next to White Cloak country, where the Primo terrorist group resides. And Gialdan, sort of like Marindy, just sort of shifts its rulers constantly, which doesn't indicate a lot of stability for the people. So the fact that Masema can just, like, come sweeping through here and accumulate people who are in really bad physical and mental and emotional straits is pretty indicative of both cults and a lot of religions.
Yeah.
Although, of course, religions and cults share a lot of similarities. If you're religious at all, your religion probably shares many of the, they have, like, every article, every news outlet is like, here are the 7 signs you're in a cult, and they're all different.
Ooh, let's read one.
Ooh, okay. I grew up in the LDS church, which has frequently been accused of being a cult, and I'm like, every religion is a cult. Yeah. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
Signs you're in a cult. Google.com. The 7 signs that you're in a cult from The Atlantic. Okay. Here are the signs. Number 1, opposing critical thinking. Every religion that I am aware of does this to some extent.
They do not like people who,
You're fine.
Who think for themselves.
Isolating members and penalizing them for leaving.
Mm-hmm.
Emphasizing special doctrines outside scripture. So, like, you could maybe have, like, here's what the particular cult leader says. And what Masema says wouldn't be quote-unquote scripture to this group of people. To this group, it might be whatever Rand says.
Yeah. There we go.
But they, of course, do whatever Masema tells them. Number 4, seeking inappropriate loyalty to their leaders. Number 5 is, might sound bizarre, but it's dishonoring the family unit. And the greatest example of this, Uno actually tells us that Masema just, like, grabbed 300 women and 300 men or whatever and just married them off. Mm-hmm. Which actually a cult famously did. I can't remember which cult it was, but yeah. And a lot of cults rearrange family units in order to usually provide access to women and often children for the cult leaders.
It's also a, like, destabilizing tactic. Like, if you are removed from the family unit, you do not have support and therefore are more reliant upon the cult leader.
Yeah, a lot of things talk about how cults use the same tactics for brainwashing, which has a lot to do with, like, destabilizing you from your home, taking you out of your home, taking you away from your support system, putting you on any sort of drugs, anything like that to put you out of your right mind and just, like, going from there. Yep. Depriving you of sleep, etc., etc. Number 6, crossing biblical boundaries of behavior versus, in parentheses it says, versus sexual purity and personal ownership. I don't really get that one.
Is
or
it
at least
like...
I don't understand what it's saying.
This is my interpretation.
Okay.
Let me know what you think.
Okay.
I think when we're comparing, like, what we consider traditional religions, there is some emphasis upon, like, sexual purity, and that, like, most religions do not condone sex before marriage or, like, quote-unquote promiscuous sexual behaviors, whatever they might consider that to be. And from, like, what I know of cults, there's often an emphasis upon this quote-unquote promiscuous sexual behavior, like group sex, polygamy, pedophilia, apparently.
Oh, hella.
So, that would be my guess.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. That makes sense.
I don't like calling pedophilia a form of promiscuity. That's why I'm trying to say, like, so-called promiscuity.
Yeah, it's...
Like, I don't really like when people put pedophilia anywhere in the range of, like, other words to describe.
Yeah, we're talking about...
behaviors.
When we talk about religion, and religious control over bodies and sexual behavior, we're usually talking about, we hope, and obviously many religions cross the line, people's choices on what to do with their bodies in regards to how and when they have sex. Mm-hmm. With cults, you're saying it's crossing the line into criminal behavior.
Yeah.
With pedophilia, women who aren't, not just women, people who aren't necessarily consenting,
yes.
or they aren't enough in their right minds to consent.
Yeah, there's just, like, real...
And yeah, lots of drugs, lots of alcohol, all situations where people aren't necessarily able to consent.
Yes. That's the much better word than promiscuity. You're so smart.
No, but promiscuity also is, like, a huge part of it.
I feel like that's the word people want to put on those types of behaviors. I think promiscuous is a very fascinating word.
Me too, because I'm like, I think it would be cool to be promiscuous.
No, but nobody wants to have sex with me. Gosh, fucking COVID. Making it so hard to be promiscuous.
Fergalicious.
Definition, make them boys go loco. I want my treasures so they get their pleasures from my phone.
It makes me so happy that you know the lyrics.
Sing the whole song.
I remember being in 7th grade and everyone around me knowing all the lyrics to that song, and I was just so befuddled because I'd, like, at that stage of my life, didn't have any access to music except what I heard occasionally on the radio.
Yeah. So you're like, Fergalicious?
I was like, what are they talking about?
I think that boys go crazy.
And everyone was like, you're dumb. And I was like, I know.
No, you're not dumb. You might... I think it's a bigger indicator of my stupidity that I know all the lyrics to Fergalicious. Like, that song lives rent-free in my head.
Aaron texted, not just me the other day, but the entire group chat, and was like, I'm listening to Emily's podcast from June 2018, and Sally had to explain to her what Save the Cheerleader, Save the World. He's like, I do not understand how you lived through the world without getting the, like, hero's tagline. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, man.
I'm gonna die. That's so funny. Although I am sorry Aaron put you on blast publicly.
I was like, how was I supposed to know?
I don't know.
I was afraid to watch live action TV at home.
In case there was, like, a titty.
Yeah, in case there was, like, you know, a fucking G-rated sex scene flashing on the screen, and one of my parents would walk in and accuse me of watching pornography or something. Very militant atmosphere at the Jew Shop in most Mormon households. Yeah. Except Kate's, that's where I went to watch CSI.
Anyway, talking about militant behavior, circling back Fergalicious to the cults.
Really, it's all
connected.
It's all coming together, Galaxy Brain. Number 7 is separation from the church, which I guess just means that a lot of, like, cults are offshoots of more established religions.
Yeah.
Which happens a lot in the LDS church.
Yeah, like the fundamentalist group that got a lot of attention a couple years ago when their compound was, like, raided or whatever.
Yeah, I think, that wasn't Rico. Some other thing.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But, yeah.
I'd say that one of the best indicators we have of cults in, like, the modern day, the separation between a lot of cults and, like, religious groups, is that cults are inherently destructive in some way. They implode. Mm-hmm. Either through external forces of violence or through internal forces of violence. Like, you get Jonestown, these mass suicides. Or you get murders or, mass murders. Mm-hmm. Thanks, Charlie Manson. Whatever. Gross. And so it is sort of inevitable that we have Masema's group here full of criminals, essentially. Just people who are like, whatever, I'm gonna do this, hang out, see what I can get away with, and eventually,
implode.
Implode.
Yeah, this basically, like Emily was talking about, there's so much about this city, what is it, Samara, that just feels like a pressure cooker. And
Yes.
a lot of that, of course, comes from Masema's influence, where he is just letting this type of behavior, like, run rampant. Whereas, like, most religions usually try to have, like, this is a toxic way of putting it, but kind of more of a, like, handle on their people.
Well, yeah, a lot of things are, a lot of religions and a lot of cults in some cases are, they have a lot of control over, you know, their denominations, whatever.
Yeah.
Masema, as we learn, doesn't really have, he has incredible control in that the people nearest him will do whatever he wants, but he's also a little bit nuts, so he can't remember what he's going to do. He says he's going to do something and then forgets to do it. And he's just sort of, like, easily maneuvered in a way.
Yeah.
And we'll see that a little bit with Perrin, as it's really tragic that Perrin's whole thing in the later books, Rand sends him off because he's like, okay, I finally maybe have to do something about this huge fucking cult that's growing in my name in the southwest corner of the continent, I guess.
That tracks.
You got me there.
Like,
he's like, Perrin, could you please go take care of this? And Perrin's like, sure. But then his wife gets kidnapped, and he's like, never mind, Rand, fuck you. But it's really a little bit tragic, because the most interesting parts of that storyline, although, as with everything, they go on too long, are, like, Perrin's pretty much sane group interacting with Masema's totally off the rails group, and, like, trying to intersect those, and, like, the control that Perrin exerts by being like, I'm the friend of Rand, and I came here on his orders, but also, like, I have no control over this situation at all.
Yeah.
Which just, again, Robert Jordan set up a really cool scenario here, but it's just like,
and then he's like,
fizzled out.
Yeah, ew, Perrin.
Ew, Perrin, which, same. Imagine if Matt was the one
I
sent to
know, I was
wrangle
just gonna
Masema,
say.
and that would easy assassination.
He's like, he's dead. We're fine.
I'll just kill him.
And Perrin's like, morals.
And I was like, ugh. I mean, even Perrin by the end of it is like, maybe I should just kill Masema. And Fail's like, I got you.
Good.
And kills Masema.
Excellent. Fucking excellent.
I know. Fail gets out of being kidnapped and is like, time to do a murder. And it's like, girl, same. It's the most relatable you've ever been.
Yeah.
So Nynaeve secures this promise from Masema that he'll look out for a ship. And then she and Uno and Ragon leave and are on their way back to the circus when Uno is like, there's a white cloak following us. And Nynaeve, of course, is like, I know who that is. It would have been hilarious, though, if Nynaeve had been like, please describe him. And Uno was like the hottest man I've ever
he's
seen.
super banging.
He's very good looking. Yeah. Instead, there's like this weird standoff in an alley where Galad is like, I need to talk to you, Nynaeve. And she's like, you have to get through my 2 bodyguards first. He's like, I don't want to. And she's like, fine. But the essential parts of this conversation are that Galad is like, I don't know what the fuck you're doing here. I don't know if anyone's told you, but your hair makes you stand out more than it does help you blend in. So I don't really know what the deal was there. It's weird that you're with the circus. But can you please leave because this place is terrible? And she's like, so you're not going to turn us into the White Cloaks? And he's like, no. What the hell? Why would I do that?
I know.
And she's like, I mean, you are part of a terrorist group that just goes around lynching innocent people.
Yeah.
The only reason we don't see Aes Sedai get, like, fucking murdered every time they interact with White Cloaks is because they have that handy, can use the power in case of life-threatening scenarios thing. Otherwise, White Cloaks would just be like, a woman who does witchcraft, we think? I mean, they do that already.
Yeah.
But usually it's just not real Aes Sedai, it's just women who
do, like, herbs and shit.
who are like, oh, I have a basic understanding of medicine.
They're like,
and they're like, witchcraft. Fucking drown. But he's like, well, I joined the hate group against people, because I felt like they victimized you guys by sending you out of the tower, like, untrained to just go fight bad guys. And Nynaeve's like, I mean, yeah, but you realize we are still also, like, part of that group.
Yeah.
And he's like, I didn't really think the whole thing through.
It's like, oh no shit.
Oh no shit, Robert Jordan, maybe you should have given us a little bit of context for the lab. It becomes more and more frustrating to me. I wrote a whole blog about it the other week. It's just like, so stupid.
Yeah.
Having Galad interact with the White Cloaks in order to give them some sort of, like, redeeming quality, but the truth is that Galad is such a bland character when we step away from his hotness that it's like, if all the White Cloaks had just gone to war against Masema and they'd all just died, all of them, I would have been like, great.
Yeah, Galad isn't like an actually good character. He's just sort of got like really strong comedic timing.
Yeah, he's funny.
Of showing up as, and everyone just being like, this is the hottest person alive, but he's also kind of stupid.
But he's also a dick.
Yeah. And so he just like creates some amusement, but he's not like, it's not like Robert Jordan took like Egg. Very interesting moral character and was like, they should join the White Cloaks.
No, he just was like, here's this kid with literally the height of privilege.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the 30 Rock storyline where Liz is dating John Hamm briefly. And she has to break up with him because she realizes that he lives in a bubble where his good looks just influence everyone to, like, treat him like he can do anything. Like, he always bypasses the line at restaurants. He stumbled his way into a medical career but can't actually do medicine. Yeah. That's like Galad to a T.
Yeah.
He's so hyper incompetent. Except apparently he's good at swinging a sword. But I'm also like, you got your ass handed to you by a kid with a stick who was recovering from a life-threatening illness. So how good can you be, really?
Yeah, seriously.
I don't know, man.
But
fuck
anyway,
Galad is what I'm saying.
He's just... whatever.
But anyway, yeah, Nynaeve is like, yeah, please look out for a ship for us. What can it hurt to have two guys looking out for a ship, especially because Masema might forget.
Yeah, which is completely reasonable.
Yeah, then of course
How would Nynaeve know it would spark a civil war?
Spiral
Two men looking for a
bad.
So stupid.
Jesus Christ. But they get away. Galad's like, why don't I put you in an inn instead of the dumb circus? And she's like, why don't we stay in the circus? Because we made a pretty, well-reasoned choice there, and you don't get to boss me around. And he's like, fine. She's like, middle fingers in the air as she leaves. Yeah. Girl's got her gumption back.
Yeah.
This is the storyline of Nynaeve regaining
her anger,
her self-confidence. But they go back to the circus. Uno and Ragan are like, why don't we hang out with you? We'll go with you. And then he was like, I mean, it would be more mouths to feed, but I do like the idea of having my own personal army of Cheyenne soldiers.
And like, same.
I know, that would be great. And she's like, don't you have things to do? And they're like, no, we literally have nothing to do. Are you kidding? We'd rather go with you. And she's like, okay. I don't know why they didn't leave already,
Yeah.
Maybe, like, personal responsibility for, like, the terror that their comrade has become, but it's like, just leave, dude.
Yeah.
Can't control him anymore.
Yeah.
Get out.
Fuck off.
But whatever. They're here when Nynaeve and Elaine need them, contributing, of course, to the idea that Nynaeve and Egg should be Tiburon.
Yeah.
Like, how funny would it be if Nynaeve was Tiburon and sparked a civil war accidentally?
She's like, fuck.
It's almost funnier that she isn't and just did it as a totally normal person.
Oh no.
Whoopsie.
Whoopsie doopsie.
Whoopsie doopsie. God, watch Middle Ditch.
I know, it's so funny. We should watch it again.
Yeah, let's. But she's like, okay, if you're gonna stick with us, then you have to let me boss you around. And they're like, whatever, we'll find a loophole in this.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So.
But she gets back to the circus. Elaine and Brigitte are like, where have you been? Everyone's out looking for you. They saw you get dragged away by a very tall Cheyenne man. Yeah. And she's like, I mean, I guess I did, but also, it's fine. Uno. It's fine, it was just Uno. I went to see Masema. By the way, Galad says hello. And Elaine's like, was the fucking queen there? And Nynaeve's like, I mean, yes. And Elaine's like, and Brigitte's like, great, I'm gonna shoot arrows at you now.
Yeah.
And, just descends into the usual circus madness from there.
Nynaeve gets arrows shot at her. Then
In
she
the
goes
end,
to sleep.
And then she's like, good night. I can't wait to get out of this stupid fucking town.
Yeah.
Nighty night. So that's that.
That's
setting up some plot lines in the southwestern portion of the continent, which is where all of our most boring plot lines will take place. Don't worry about it. Also, Nynaeve remembered that Salidar is where they need to go, so they do have a destination now.
Excuse me.
But that's that. As previously forecasted, we'll return next week with the history of telescopes, I guess. As we get
to talk about the history of telescopes.
I know, me too. Glass. As we get into Rand and Co. retaking Kyrian from the Shadow. Or I guess not retaking it because it hasn't fallen yet. Whatever. Stupid.
I guess taking Kyrian from the Kyrian.
Kyrian. Or like, I guess it was between you and the other terrible people.
Oh my god, this is my boss. I'm sorry, you guys. You can end the podcast. Okay, I'm back.
Sorry. Thanks to Glenna Mackenzie for our beautiful theme song. Thank you to all of you for listening. If you need some more EHR content, you should check us out on Patreon, where we have things like our blooper reel, my read-along, A Memory of Light blog, which will be going on until the year 2050. Our side podcast, We Don't Watch Outlander. We are currently watching Watchmen on HBO, which has just been nominated for a record-breaking number of Emmys. And we're only 2 episodes in, but so far, well-deserved.
Yeah.
Or on the $5 or up tier, you can watch our video series in an hour or less where we discuss mythology, history, literary theory. This month, Sally's going to be covering Greek monsters, which is going to be super fun. I'm very excited to learn about it. Or, of course, at our $10 tier, you can get a personalized Wheel of Time book. Recently, received by Sarah McClintock, who said it was good.
Yeah, so.
Said it was worth the wait, we hope. By the time you're listening to this, I should have finished playing Wind Waker. I'm about to take on the boss this Friday, and hopefully will not die repeatedly. There's a good chance, but I will stay until the end, and Wind Waker will be over one way or another. But we will continue doing our live stream, so please tune in this Friday on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/EmilyJushaw, and we'll be doing something. We don't know what yet, but something. We really enjoyed talking to you on Friday nights during quarantine.
Yes.
Well, that's that. That's a roundup. Do you have a sign-off?
I don't have a sign-off, except that I got called twice by my boss 2.5 hours after clocking out in the middle of this fucking recording.
My sign-off is that Aaron was like, you don't know about heroes. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, man.
I just feel like Save the Cheerleader, Save the World was, like, literally everywhere.
That's what he said, too. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. I was in this bubble.
It's very funny.
Sad bubble. I didn't even...
in a John Hamm bubble. She's just too beautiful.
The first pop music I remember hearing is How to Save a Life by The Fray.
Would one call that pop music?
Alt pop?
Yes.
Pop like it was on the radio. And my dad's best friend, Ben Knowlton, did karaoke into a little thing of broccoli at our New Year's Eve party.
Oh my gosh.
Ta-da!
Ben Knowlton is the funniest man alive.
There is a sign-off in there somewhere. Thanks for listening, everyone. Don't do work crimes. Goodbye.
Bye.